eventually. But it's also been a busy week in Houston because they have a new head coach in DeMeco Ryan, and we're joined by Hall of Fame columnist, GallerySports.com, and also part of 610 in Houston and many other stations around the country in John McClain. John, I feel like, and I could be wrong, but let me know, was DeMeco Ryans really the only best choice they had?
If you listen to the fan base and the media, but they interviewed 8 people. They interviewed 2 or 3 a second time. But once he had his Zoom interview, which lasted 4 hours before they played on the Friday before the 49ers played the Cowboys, that blew everybody away. Both sides told me it went great. And I think when he came here for his in-person interview, the McNair family knew they weren't going to let him get away. General Manager Nick Caserio wanted him. If he didn't, DeMeco wouldn't be here because the McNairs weren't going to make him do it. But Gary Kubiak united the fan base in '06 when he came from Denver, where he'd been offensive coordinator, won 2 Super Bowls. DeMeco's united the fan base. And one reason is because the franchise has been in such turmoil, not just losing the last 3 seasons, going Jack Easterby, Bill O'Brien's controversial trades, Deshaun Watson, David Culley, one and done, Lovie Smith, one and done, just such turmoil. And DeMeco's always one of the best and most popular players in franchise history. He's NFL Assistant Coach of the Year this year. And he wanted to be here, and they wanted him. And that's one reason. It's one reason that he's so endeared himself so much to the people here is he could have gone to Denver. He could have maybe gone to Carolina, Colts, and Cardinals. They all wanted him, and he only interviewed with the Broncos because that was the day before he interviewed with the Texans.
John, do you expect we know what the defense is going to look like. It's going to look like DeMeco Ryan's defense. That's what he's going to want. Do you expect the offense to be a Shanahan wide zone kind of thing, or do you think he'll go in a different direction?
I believe this. That system was started by Mike Shanahan, handed down to Gary Kubiak, handed down to Kyle Shanahan, as well as some others. And a lot of coaches put their own little nuances on it. And I think Ryan's wants a coach that has that experience. Bobby Slowick on the 49ers staff as a passing game coordinator. He and DeMeco and Kyle Shanahan got the 49ers senior year 2017. And Bobby Slowick had been with Kyle Shanahan 3 years in Washington. He seems like a natural. It doesn't mean they're going to hire him. Another one I like is Clint Kubiak, the Broncos quarterback coach, who's been with Minnesota, and he runs a similar system that he learned from his father. And so I think it's important to have what you know. And you got to get a quarterback that's going to fit that. And you don't have to have a great arm to run the system. You need a good arm. Bryce Young's got a good arm.
John, what are any potential pitfalls here? I mean, it's always when there's a new guy, especially one that's so beloved, it's like, oh, it's the greatest thing ever, and I understand why, but what are potential concerns with DeMeco Ryans?
He's only been a coach for 6 years. He played for 10 years. He was the captain and NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. He made all first team All Pro, Pro Bowl, finished his career with the Eagles. And then Shanahan hired him a year later, and he doesn't have a lot of experience coaching. I think it's important that he gets a former head coach on his staff in some capacity. I wish it would be Gary Kubiak. And or somebody else. To me, you should have one on each side of the ball who's been through the ringer. And you never know if they blow the quarterback. If I don't know that the honeymoon could be over. Or say he said, okay, I want to stick with Davis Mills, or I want to sign Jimmy Garoppolo. When all the fans and media want him to get the franchise quarterback with the second pick, even if they have to swap spots with the Bears to get the first overall pick. And the expectations are not going to be high. I think it would have to be, I think it would have to be a huge setback if they didn't win more games than they did last year. But I thought they were going to win more with Lovie Smith.
Yeah, you think Lovie will coach again?
No, I don't. I think that he could be an assistant coach somewhere. He's got a lot of contacts. And Lovey's not old. He's only like 64. So he's a coach. That's what he wants to do right now. He's playing a lot of golf.
John, what do you think about the Cowboys moving on from Kellen Moore and Mike McCarthy calling plays, and Kellen Moore subsequently getting hired very fast by the Chargers?
Kellen Moore gets to go work with Justin Herbert, a lot of skill position players, and improving offensive line. Nobody's sold yet on Brandon Staley as a head coach, but still, it's a good spot for him to go. And if he does well, maybe he'll be the next head coach. So I think it was a great move for Kellen Moore. When Mike McCarthy, remember his first news conference, I'll be calling plays. 2 days later, Kellen Moore will be calling plays because Jerry laid the law down. And I don't think what happened to the Cowboys is Kellen Moore's plays fault. But you know how it is when you lose. I've never seen teams get rid of coordinators as much as these losing teams have.
Some guy named Brady retired this week, John.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that guy?
I think he's got a chance to get in the Hall of Fame. I think he's got a chance to first thing I thought about is our Hall of Fame meeting to determine who gets in 2028 will be shorter because Tom Brady will not take any kind of the rep will go, ladies and gentlemen, Tom Brady would sit down and like, ooh, that's 20 minutes we don't have to waste. And, of course, he'll be unanimous first ballot. How many people retire and then they get a raise of about $17.5 million a year, which he's going to get going to Fox next year for $37.5 million.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of broadcasting, Tony Romo, there was a story from Andrew Marchand about Tony Romo had the CBS
intervention.
Yeah, like intervention was the word, which is kind of a little bit harsh. But do you get the impression that it's fading for him, or what?
I don't know. I haven't noticed that. Maybe others have, and I just don't know. I haven't noticed it, but I don't watch those guys much.
John McClain, again, GallerySports.com, Sports Talk Radio 610 in Houston with us on Tuesdays, but the last couple of 2 or 3 weeks we've had him in on Friday because of his duties, many things he does.
John, do you think that the Brady domino is obviously the first one to fall? How do you think that sets off the Packers, Raiders, anybody else in the quarterback market as they start to shuffle around?
I think there's going to be a lot of movement of veteran quarterbacks, and most people that are interested in veterans think that they're the answer to helping them get to the playoffs. And I can't wait. Aaron Rodgers is such drama queen. Who's going to pay him almost $60 million at 39 years old? He'd been to one Super Bowl. It was 12 years ago. He's kind of a nut job. And I think he should stay right there in Green Bay. They've done everything they can to help him with young receivers. And but I think that one's going to drag out. Let me tell you guys where I was this past weekend, because the 12-year-old me growing up in Waco playing Little League Baseball up at Lake Air for the Shell Oil, making the Northwestern All-Stars. I loved baseball back then. I love football too, but I was in Palm City, Florida at the Floridian National Golf Club, which is owned by Astros owner Jim Crane. He turned it over to Reggie Jackson for his annual Mr. October Celebrity Golf Tournament and fundraiser. There were 40 Hall of Famers there from football and baseball. And Gallery Sports, Mattress Mac, sponsored the celebrity dinner the night before, and we were on the media outlet. So we were set up on the veranda, and everybody I saw walk by, I grabbed them, and because they don't know what Gallery Sports is, but they just saw the big sign. They sponsored the dinner, and I got 19 interviews over 2 days. And one of them was Reggie Jackson, who doesn't do a lot of interviews. And one of the things I asked Reggie, and I was in awe. I don't think I act like it. I tried not to. And I asked him, I said, I've never seen you say this. Which home run that you hit the hardest? The 71 All-Star game at Tiger Stadium. That was when I was a senior at Richfield. Or the 77 World Series halfway up Tarpon Dead Center Yankee Stadium. when I was in my second year at the Chronicle, and he hesitated. He said, the one at Tiger Stadium. So they hit the lights. Anybody wondering about it should go Google it and see, because everybody said it was the hardest, longest home run they'd ever seen. It would have come down in Canada if it hadn't hit the lights. And when I watch it, I think there was so many future Hall of Famers in that game. And there'll never be another All-Star game with that many Hall of Famers. But I was like a kid in a candy store.
That's
because
awesome.
Who would have dreamed growing up in Waco, Texas, I'd be in a situation like that? I am blessed.
That's awesome. Speaking of Hall of Fame, and we brought that up because of what you did as well with what you have next week, obviously. There's going to be another class release. Give us a little idea. I know you can't discuss too much of it, but do you feel pretty good about where things are trending?
I'm interested in Andre Johnson because I presented him, and 3 receivers, him and Reggie Wayne and Torrey Holt, made the cut from 15 to 10. I just wish one of them would get in, so we may put the other 2 in the next 2 years because it's a logjam right now. But the one really close to my heart is Chuck Howley, the former Cowboys linebacker, who's 86, has Alzheimer's really bad. And I presented him to the seniors committee, and he got that nomination. I presented Howley to the big committee, and we find out, I'm sure he's going to get in because the big committee rubber stamps what the senior and coach committees recommend. So he waited 46 years. He doesn't know what planet he's on, but his son, Scott, said he never gave up on the Hall of Fame. And so it would mean so much to that family if their daddy, who has Alzheimer's, severe case of Alzheimer's, lives next door to Staubach, if his dad gets in. And if he does, I'll be writing a huge story on YallerySports.com, and I'll have a bunch of videos of Chuck Howley.
All right, I got to ask you a question. How long have you been on that committee? How many years now?
30, I think.
How many times has someone stood up to represent somebody to nominate or discuss the Hall of Fame, and they've just said, like, basically a name?
That first one was Dan Marino, and then Joe Montana, Peyton Manning, Brett Favre. That's the way it'll be, in Tom Brady. And like Lawrence Taylor, one of the 2 greatest defensive players, and Reggie White, we talked about him. I don't know why. Taylor, we had to get the bylaws read to us and so everybody know it didn't matter what he did off the field. And Jerry Rice, for some reason, there's a little discussion. But, man, those all-time great quarterbacks, I love it. They just say, ladies and gentlemen, Paul Catalina, and then they sit down.
There
Well,
you
I
go.
mean,
That's all it should take.
That's how it's going to be. That's how it's going to be.
Wait a minute. We're going to discuss that one.
John, we've got one of our listeners on the chat room posted that he's from Dallas. He's never been to Houston. He's going down there in a few weeks for a wedding. If he's got a couple places that he has time to eat at, where would you recommend he go? He's never been to Houston before.
Well, first of all, there's only a million.
Yeah.
Give him my number, my cell, and tell him to text me.
Wow.
And tell me he's the one that called you guys, and I'll set up a conversation, find out what part of town he's going to be in, and I'll recommend the good ones, just like I do to all my friends that come to Waco, and I tell them to go to George's, and I tell them to go to Cups Drive-In. Those are my 2 favorite places.
I don't remember what it was a Super Bowl in Houston. It might have been the Janet Jackson Super Bowl, but Earl Campbell took us into a restaurant with his family and others, and I don't remember what it was. It was like a steakhouse and seafood restaurant. He walked in, and there was this table for like 16 for him. It was. I'm going to have to ask him what the
John,
name
it's the place that's got like all the caricatures, and I think it's actually moved locations to like a hotel now.
Well, I don't know. We only got 5,000 steak places, but wherever Earl goes, I still don't think he picks up any tabs. When he used to play here, he and the lineman would go after a game to Sunny Looks Restaurant, which is down from the Astrodome.
That might
and
be
a fan in there every time would pick up the tab, no matter how much it cost, how much those linemen ate, because they love Earl and they love your Blue Oilers.
But go ahead.
I think it was the Palm.
The Palm, that's what it was, the Palm. John, you spoke about the All-Star game and all the Hall of Fame names and what you were doing at the event. I was fortunate to go to the 1971 Major League Baseball All-Star Game at D.C. Stadium in Washington. I knew this was true. They had the following Hall of Famers in that game: Johnny Bench, Willie McCovey, Joe Torre, Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, Willie Stargell, Steve Carlton, Ferguson Jenkins, Juan Marichal, Tom Seaver, and Sparky Anderson, Walter Alston, Tony Oliva, Louis Aparicio, Rod Carew, Brooks Robinson, Frank Robinson, and Carl Yastrzemski. Jim Palmer, all of them were a part of that game, and I was there when I was just a child. It was amazing, that memory.
Are you sure that was 71? Because I thought the Tigers Stadium was 71. And either way.
70, you might be right. 70, I thought it was 1972 then, maybe.
No, it missed 72. 71 was the Tiger Stadium. So you had all those guys.
13 Hall of Famers in
All-Star
Washington.
games.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and they're all playing the year before, too. I would suggest anybody look up Reggie Jackson's All-Star game home run in 71, and I just wish we had slow motion, which they didn't, to watch the majestic, the way it just went into the sky and disappeared, and all of a sudden, boom, the lights started coming out, kind of like in the movie The Natural.
John, you would have just done, like, Dave Campbell is very proud of you right now to go 71 was in Detroit, 72 was in. That was some Dave Campbell stuff right there.
Yeah, that was. And I'm pretty good about those years, too. Yeah, it was actually it was 1969 at D.C. Stadium when they had the big rain delay, and that was the All-Star game I attended.
The only reason I remembered that is just because I interviewed Reggie, and I'll never forget. There were about 5 of us sitting around at a guy's apartment and watching that All-Star game. And when he hit that home run, we were like jumping up and down, mesmerized that he'd able to do that. And if people will look on gallerysports.com, you'll see all the videos I did. And the one I did with Reggie, you look at him, he's so small. He's thin, and he's about 5'9", and I always thought Reggie Jackson was 6'2" and 230 because he was wide. But one of the reasons he's in such good shape and plays so much golf is he's made sure to keep his weight and his health. They're doing really, really well.
John, thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Sick on the sellout crowd. I can't wait.
Yep, John McClain, GallerySports.com, Sports Talk Radio 610 in Houston with us on Tuesdays. The last 3 weeks it's been